If you're a Christian and considering therapy, especially for something like OCD, you might be wondering, is this going to pull me away from my faith? Or maybe you've been told that if you just prayed more, read scripture more, or trusted God more, you'd be healed. Well, those are big questions, and you're not alone in asking them. Today, I want to talk about how therapy, specifically ERP for OCD, can actually support your walk with God, not replace it. I'm Justin K. Hughes, licensed professional counselor, and I specialize in OCD and anxiety disorders, and especially at the intersection of faith. And I've worked with hundreds of Christians who wrestle with thoughts like, is this sin or OCD? Am I doing something wrong by needing therapy? Can I trust a therapist who doesn't share my beliefs? I've wrestled with those questions myself, and I want to bring some clarity and encouragement to you today. So, a lot of believers hesitate to get help because they're afraid that therapy might undermine their faith. And by the way, I really respect initially that willingness to say, hey, I'll even turn down a possible option. I'll continue in suffering if it means giving up something of importance, and in many cases, the utmost importance. I it's just impressive to actually see. But what if that's not necessary? What if the two aren't equated? Well, so sometimes the worry shows up like this. Wasn't CBT created by people who didn't believe in God, who were atheists? In fact, the therapy establishment, psychiatry, psychology doesn't involve a lot of people who don't believe in God or reject him outright. If I stop confessing or praying a certain way, is that disobedient? Isn't therapy just secular self help? If I still struggle after prayer, does that mean that I'm spiritually weak? So these concerns are real, and they often come from misunderstandings about what therapy actually is, especially when it comes to conditions like OCD. So let's take a pause and talk about ERP. What is exposure and response prevention? Well, it's the gold standard treatment, isn't a first choice. It doesn't mean it's perfect, but a first choice for people with OCD. And it's not about positive thinking, self reliance, or just replacing lies with truth, which is actually where a lot of Christians get tripped up. It teaches you to face fears experientially without giving into compulsions. It interrupts the OCD cycle that is driven by compulsions. So, this includes mental compulsions that look spiritual, like over confessing, constantly seeking reassurance, even from people at church, loved ones, family, or trying to feel perfectly certain all the time. ERP actually helps you build tolerance for doubt and uncertainty, which for many Christians actually strengthens faith, but can feel really scary when it bumps up against themes that are so important to a person's values and beliefs. So you're no longer trying to fix or control everything. You're learning to walk forward, trusting God in the uncertainty ultimately. Now, therapy doesn't have to compromise your faith because scripture actually gives us a strong foundation of seeking help. Proverbs says, wise people seek counsel. Galatians says to bear one another's burdens. Ecclesiastes says there's a time to heal. Even the early church made room for practical needs like food distribution. So getting help doesn't mean you've failed spiritually. It means you're human and using tools that God has made available. So faith and therapy can work together. You don't have to pick between trusting God and getting support. ERP isn't this rejection of your values or doing things that you don't sign up for. As I often say to clients, that if you don't know what you're doing or you haven't committed to it, that's not ERP. You have to consent to it. And you also need to have an idea of what you're doing. Otherwise, it's just throwing yourself to the wolves, so to speak. So ERP doesn't reject values. It's a way to live them without twisting faith or any other good thing. So when OCD no longer runs the show, you can pray, worship, confess, rest freely, not compulsively. And when it's not an issue of something like scrupulosity, obsessions of faith, obsessions of religious beliefs, moral things, well, the same applies for that too. It can be worries of health and sickness or death or whatever. It is all about freedom. And what happens when we learn these things in a tangible, behavioral, cognitive, experiential way? Well, we're tasting some some freedom in this temporary earthly sense, but it frees us up then to be able to approach our spiritual walk more consistently and on point with the things that really matter rather than the pinpoint focus of a possible fear. So, if you're ready to take the next step in your recovery journey, I've created resources specifically for Christians with OCD. I have an online course called Christians Overcome Your OCD. You can follow for more videos or share with somebody else who needs to hear that they're not alone. I have a newsletter, justinkhughes.com/getunstuck, to keep up to date with blog articles, events, all sorts of other things. So you can find me in the community, speaking, doing advocacy, course therapy. And I just want to end, though, most importantly, that these things can go together. Faith and therapy can absolutely go together, and your healing matters. Let me know if you'd like this turned into a fuller article or some variation focused on a specific subtype of OCD, or anything else that you'd like to hear or see in the comments. Thanks.